Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be for the 7 of you who are still into Helium. We're going to talk about why your Helium Mobile Wi-Fi rewards just tripled overnight, right? Pretty significant difference. We're going to talk about what happened, what caused this. Is this a one-time thing? Was it a glitch thing? Did a lot of people go offline? We're going to talk about that as well as a few other updates. They did update that Helium Planner, so we'll kind of go over that. And the potential of a new subnetwork, right? Which is a pretty exciting deal here. So we're going to kind of touch on these things. We're going to talk about what happened. I'll give you an update on how my guys are doing so you can kind of get an idea if you're interested in deploying and just things to consider, right? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get to this thing. So we're going to kind of just touch on these hips. They're very in-depth. They're very technical. We're just going to touch on the main talking points here, and these are actually hips that we have talked about in the past, and we were hoping that they would provide a benefit. Did not think it would be this drastic, but that kind of does explain quite a few issues. So essentially what happened, HIP 122 got passed. We'll cover what the main differences are here in a second, but this kind of fixed the issues that happened when HIP 113 took effect. Right, so when HIP 113 took effect, the expectation was rewards were going to 2x. They unfortunately weren't that good, and a big part of it was that the people who benefited the most are those people in the boosted locations. Okay, so they got pretty extreme benefits from it. We didn't get as much, so the reason that we got an increase now is that it reduced the amount that those boosted locations are getting from the proof of coverage bucket. Okay, so that's the main reason we got such a big increase. Okay, so those guys, if we're getting a 3x return, it's seeming like those guys were getting a huge chunk of that proof of coverage emissions, right? So what this did is essentially just limited the amount that they're going to get. It's creating a separate bucket for them. That's where they're going to get theirs from. And it increased the proof of coverage bucket because essentially the way it works, it's again very similar to mining, is that there's daily total emissions and we all get a share of that pie depending on your hex coverage. Okay, so that's the big reason. So it's not a glitch, it's not a one-time thing. This is going to be what it is. Just keep in mind though that it is going to just continually go down still. Okay, just because, and you guys who are miners, you kind of know the relationship between like difficulty and hash rate. Similar thing here. Again, it's all one big emissions pot essentially. The more people there are on the network, the smaller your slice of the pie is going to be. So again, the goal of this network is to definitely always continually expand. And as that happens, your share is just going to get smaller from the proof of coverage bucket. Obviously, the main goal here is not for you to rely on that. Right now, that's currently just to incentivize people to currently deploy to start getting those areas. But ideally, you want to make most of your income or your rewards from actually offloading data, which in reality is the goal. And as we get more network providers, that's where the real incentive is going to come, right? So right now, currently, you are only able to get benefits from other Helium mobile subscribers, which is kind of limited. But the goal here, and where you're going to potentially make more money, is once they start partnering up with different carriers so you can offload to them. In reality, that is the main goal of Helium Mobile. Like, yes, they are a mobile provider, but in reality, that's where the real benefit's going to be once we start doing that. Okay. So we'll go over the gist of 122 real quick. Again, we're not going to go super in detail, but essentially the main thing was just that, right? Just the fact that the boosted locations are going to come from primarily now a secondary bucket. They're not going to get as much from the proof of coverage bucket anymore. And again, that's why we saw that massive increase, which is kind of crazy. It's kind of telling that how much of a portion of the rewards those guys in those boosted locations, specifically those 100x freaking Miami locations, were getting, right? So it's not that they were gaming the system, it's just that's how it was implemented, right? So this is kind of just fixing and essentially getting what we should have gotten after HIP 113, right? So pretty cool there. There are two other things that are kind of important. Number 2 is reduce the minimum time for service provider hex boosting to 3 months. Currently it's 6 months. They can do it 6 months at a time. Once that expires, they can either continue it or go to a different area. So currently, for example, the 100x locations, that doesn't mean that they're getting switched to 10x. It's just whenever those expire, they're not going to be able to do another 100x, right? If they want to continue, it's going to be a 10x or lower. Okay, so that will also help because now, of course, they're going to target those specific areas and they're going to do it by having boosted locations. So now that'll increase the amount of boosted locations that they can feasibly do, right? Because if you have a 100x location and you have these 5x locations, for every one we're losing here, it's going to cover 20 more over here, right? So it's going to spread things out a little bit because they're going to continue doing and adding more boosted locations because, again, they want to incentivize specific areas, okay? So the fact that they can also reduce it down to 3 months kind of gives them more benefit to kind of like slowly increase. But one more thing on those Miami locations, some of them are due to expire as soon as like August, between August and October. So when those do expire, we'll have additional revenue, right? So potentially for those are locations who are boosted, you may see an increase there as well as the proof of coverage guys. So number 3, limit future boost creation to a maximum of 10x. So that's kind of what we're talking about. So now they won't be able to do 15, 20, 100x locations anymore. It's going to be a max of 10. From what we've seen, it's 10x and 5x locations, just depending obviously on the incentive needed to get those areas that they want. Okay, so pretty good stuff. So this also doesn't mean, keep in mind that this doesn't mean that the rewards you're getting now and the rewards you do on the Helium Planner, when we get to that here in a moment, that doesn't mean it's going to be fixed at that amount, right? For you guys who are miners or who are into that whole thing or understand the dynamics, it's a very similar concept, right? So there's the daily emissions, it's all one bucket. The more people that are on the network, so the more antennas, the more of us who are on there, the smaller your slice of the pie is going to get. So very similar to like the difficulty hash rate, again, for you guys who are miners. Same exact concept. So again, the goal is to expand coverage to get more of these units online. So as that happens, your slice of that pie is going to get smaller. So this is just a dynamic that is going to continue to happen. And that's just from natural progression, but keep in mind that the one constant here is going to be change, right? We've already seen just in these past 6-7 months how much change has happened. It's been pretty drastic, and it's going to continue to happen. Everything is very dynamic. They want to target specific areas. So if you're not in those ideal areas, you're not going to benefit as much. Again, there are going to be future hips that are going to just funnel more into those locations they want to be in, which is those urban downtown areas essentially. Okay, so again, this isn't ideally if you're in a residential area, if you're in the middle of nowhere, this isn't the best thing for you, although you can still definitely benefit, right? So like mine are in a residential area and I've benefited extremely well, right? Even currently right now, it's been doing extremely well, but just I'm fully knowing that ideally this is not the ideal location, the ideal setup. Although once we do get more offload partners, I feel confident that it's going to benefit greatly just because of my location. Although it's not a downtown urban area, it is covering a local gym here we have in our community, a trail, a big pool area, our big community center, all that kind of thing where guess what? People are stationary in one location on their phones. Okay, so I do feel like it's going to do fairly well once we get those more mobile offload partner deals in place. Okay, so that's the gist of 122, and that's primarily the big reason we got such an increase. We may see a few more potential increases just because there are a few other hips that are taking place fairly soon. The next one is going to take effect on July 15th, and they're just anti-gaming measures. Again, it's HIP 125 if you want to read into it more. It's very technical. You can go in and read there. And there is another HIP here as well, HIP 119. Again, also helping with the gaming issue. So these are all definitely good things. We want to see them be proactive on this front. Because again, that was a big thing we knew was going to happen, especially when they introduced those 100x boosted locations. It's going to trigger the bad actors. It's going to be people trying to game the system, trying to spoof locations, just like we saw back in the IoT days, right? So it is good to see that they are being very active, very proactive in dealing with these issues. Okay, so definitely things we want to see, but just kind of keep all these things in mind as we go through it. Okay, so currently, and the 3x, for example, I hit it on all of mine. Okay, so all of them did almost exactly a 3x. Okay, so you can see here, I do have a total of 3. Personally, I have 2 of the outdoors and 1 of the indoor. Like we've mentioned before, the best ones are definitely the outdoors, just because depending on your setup, depending on your location, those are just going to cover the most amount of hexes, which is the goal here, right? You want to spread that coverage, versus the indoor is only going to cover that one hex. So you can't do anything to increase that. It's a limitation with the device, and that's what it's intended for, right? So keep that in mind. So for example, this is my better unit. I do have two outdoor ones kind of facing in opposing directions. One gets twice the amount of rewards as the other, right? So when you're doing the Helium Planner, which we'll talk about here in a moment, the location, the angle of it matters big time. Okay, so make sure you do mess around with it, do play around with it, with the azimuth and the angle and everything. But you can see here, you can see from July 9th to the 10th, drastic change going from about 1700 mobile up to 5100. Okay, and this is just proof of coverage rewards. This is not anything else. This is not data offloading. This is just straight up proof of coverage. So pretty significant increase there. You can see here, this is the little guy. So you're indoors. If you're getting full things here, it's again, you have to factor in the multipliers and such, which mine's only getting the 0.44, I believe. So just depending on your location. But mine was getting 200. It's now up to 600, which again isn't too great. And then this is the other outdoor unit, and it went from 858 mobile a day to 2500 a day, right? So pretty significant increase. So definitely good there. As we look at total profitability, for those of you guys who track that, currently at today's mobile price, which again, you got to factor in the dump currently, so 8300 mobile total, right, which is what I'm getting for the 3 units. Again, 1 indoor, 2 outdoors. It's about 13 bucks a day in all profit, right? And like for me, for example, it's all profit because I got in on the first batch way back then, for you guys who caught any of the previous videos, and they paid themselves off all within 30 days. Okay, so everything since then has just been all gravy. And again, like I mentioned before, whether it's earning 13 bucks worth or $1 worth, it's still profitable, right? At the end of the day, I actually like the coverage it provides. I love especially the outdoor Wi-Fi's because I get coverage on my entire property, right? So even just from that benefit, I love it, right? So pretty good as far as profitability goes, especially in this current climate, which if you guys are miners is extremely rough, right? Whether you're GPU mining, ASIC mining, this is now more profitable than even a lot of my ASICs. Okay, and then factor in that this thing has essentially no overhead, right? Even the most efficient ASIC being like a K0 Ultra, which is 100 watts, this thing uses, between the 3 devices, uses less than that and is significantly more profitable, right? And a lot of people argue, well, I don't have any interest in Helium Mobile, I don't care for the token. You can swap it into any other thing you want, right? Whether it's fiat, whether it's another crypto, whether you're into Caspa, you're into lithium. Like for example, right now, 13 bucks is 13 a lithium. Like it's dynamic, guys. Like don't get stuck in that mindset, right? Look for incentives, profitability. But again, as we're going through this, just keep in mind the Helium Planner is finally updated. So as you do your, I'll have a link to the website, but it's planner.hellohelium.com. You're going to go to my plans, you'll make a little account, and you can put in your location, and it'll give you the estimates, right? So again, mess with the azimuth, mess with the angle, because it does vary. It does make differences. And then now the reason that I'm saying this is updated is taking into account all the oracles, all the changes that happened previously, which were drastically changing your estimates, right? So now it should be more accurate. It's not going to be 100%, but just again, keep in mind that when you see that amount you're going to be earning, it's not fixed. It's mostly going to continue to drop. You ideally want to be in a urban area. So again, you can kind of see where they're targeting next. And currently it's the LA area, right? So you can see that's where the new boosted locations are. You can see there is a ton. You can see here, these are up to 5x. You click on them, you can see the individual boosts. You can see the individual coverage. So the way it's set up here is you can set it up by reward multiplier, and you can see the signal strength of the unit, right? So here you can see the signal strength of people's actual miner. Here's where you can see the reward multiplier. The darker the purple, the better the hex is, right? So you don't want to be in locations which are like this, where it's essentially nothing. because you're going to get basically nothing. Okay, so again, you can definitely see here they're targeting those denser metro areas. You can see the difference in color here, right? Obviously, you don't want to be in like these darker areas. You want to be here, and even nationwide, you can see it, right? You can see they are targeting these denser city areas, and that's where you want to be. So if you're in those areas, maybe something you want to consider, but like if you're in the boonies out here, probably not going to be for you, right? So just make sure you do understand all those dynamics, okay? So that was a nice update. Another big thing, this was kind of just an interesting thing. So they did posting up more stats. They just tweeted about it a few minutes ago. But one interesting thing here, so you can go to hellohelium.com/stats and it will give you just overall stats. You can see the total amount of signups on Helium Mobile, hotspots deployed, etc., etc. So they're almost at 100,000, which is pretty big deal. What to me was cool is they are doing a carrier offload beta. Interesting things here. Okay, the one that caught my eye was this guy here. Offload connections. Okay, subscribers from other carriers can connect to Helium mobile hotspots that are part of the beta deployment. This graph shows the number of subscribers from other carriers that have connected to the Helium network through hotspots. It's 146,000 different ones. And this is a small beta. This is a small amount of units, and they got this much activity. So this is why, this is kind of the main premise with everything, is what's going to be bullish for us is when and if, right, it's not something that's guaranteed, but they've been kind of teasing quite a few partnerships with other mobile carriers where we can use our deployments to offload data for them, and we get incentivized for that. That's kind of the end game for it. That's kind of the main premise behind having these units, and that's where the real money can come in potentially. So there's a lot of people who are deploying these things in those businesses, in those bars, in those locations where people are going to be. And as we get these offload partners, because again, currently it's only with Helium Mobile, you're getting paid 50 cents a gig that you're offloading. But again, as they go to, if they get a partnership with like AT&T is the one they've been teasing, if they were to get other big carriers, obviously it's going to not necessarily attract more people, but you're going to be able to offload to a wider variety of people, right? Because there's not too many Helium Mobile people. So pretty bullish news. Again, these are the types of statistics and data points we do want to see. And again, just remember that's kind of the main goal. I've seen a lot of people be bearish, like, there's no way, look, how are they going to cover the US if they're only covering here? Their goal is to offload data, right? And where's the majority of people? In these metro downtown areas, right? It's not to be in the middle of nowhere over here, right? They want to target these areas because that's where these other carriers also need to target. That's the coverage they primarily want to target and they want to hit. And with Helium, they can target specific areas, and that's kind of the point of these like boosted locations, right? They can see areas where, man, we're kind of slacking in this area. We'll do a boosted location here, and they can target those areas and get the coverage they want. Okay, and that's kind of the beauty of all this. That's part of the data they use for any guys who are like Helium Mobile subscribers, where we're getting paid for providing that data. That's all useful data to them. Okay, so that's a big part of the whole ecosystem here. So pretty cool stuff, pretty bullish news here. The other big thing is, so it's going to be up for vote. I'm not going to get into the details too much because until this thing goes up to vote, right? There are going to be changes, there are different things, but there are talks of a new subnetwork, a new sub-DAO. This is HIP 128, and this is for a Energy Subnetwork, which is interesting that they're going somewhere that's outside of the wireless networks, right? Which kind of seemed like was going to be their thing. So this is kind of showing that potentially they're going to venture out, potentially, maybe other deep-in things. This one's not super interesting to me, but there would be benefits from it. So this HIP proposes the creation of Energy. This would be the new one. A new subnetwork within the Helium ecosystem. This subnetwork rewards users who participate in solar power production and battery energy storage. The subnetwork aims to collect data from and offer control of connected solar power and battery resources. Okay, so I'm not a solar guy, so for me, not super interested in the project itself, but even if you're not interested in the project, there are benefits if you are on Helium. Okay, So number one, dual mining for existing compatible hotspots. Existing compatible Helium hotspots can be upgraded to participate in the Energy Subnetwork and earn both IoT and energy rewards. So something that's kind of cool there. I'm assuming dual mining for existing, it's probably going to be the IoT devices that are also Raspberry Pis, right? That have a little bit more utility. So that would be something that's kind of cool there. And it also just adds more utility to the IoT network, right? So that is a big thing, and that's actually number two there. That's what they're talking about there. So the Energy Subnetwork will transfer supporting sensor data over the existing IoT infrastructure, including utility meter data and solar lux meter data. Number three, increased DC, so data credit burn, energy management, and grid stabilization services provided by the Energy Subnetwork will drive significant data credit burn. This increased DC burn directly benefits all HNT holders by potentially increasing HNT value through the burn and mint equilibrium. So that's kind of the benefit if you are holding HNT, is just because of the data credits, right? And it's going to just increase the rewards potentially on your IoT device as well. And it's going to just increase the utility on it, right? Number four, expansion of helium. By entering the rapidly growing renewable energy sector, helium expands its utility and potential market reach, attracting new participants and investors. And you can go through and read a little bit more. So currently the one who is targeted is Sourceful. So srcful.io. You can read a little bit more about them. You can kind of see the project, what's going on, and see how you feel about it, right? So it's currently not a done deal. This is the current HIP, though. There are going to be a lot of changes to this HIP, so make sure you understand that, and then it still has to get voted on, right? So chances are there's a lot of benefits for us, so chances are it's probably going to pass, but it's not a wrap. It's not a done deal for sure, right? So keep those things in mind, guys. Well, just wanted to give you guys that update. Let me know how your rewards went, guys. Did you guys also get like a clean 3x, or was it based on boosted locations? Well, mine aren't boosted, but as far as like your rewards multiplier, did that play into effect? For you guys who have like a full 1x multiplier, did you guys get more than the 3x? Let me know in the comments, guys, if you guys got that benefit also. Or if it was less, if you guys only maybe 1.5 or 2x. Let me know, just kind of curious to see if there's any dynamics, or if it was just literally 3x across the board. Let me know in the comments, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching, and we are out.